This is the Amp Hour Podcast. Released June 25th, 2018. Episode 397.10. An interview with Jeremy Hong.
Welcome to the Amp Hour. I'm Chris Gamble, Contextual Electronics.
And I'm Jeremy Hong of Hong's Electronics and Cedar Creek Software.
What's Cedar Creek? I actually didn't know what that is.
That is the company that I work for full-time doing the hardware reverse engineering stuff.
Very cool. Yeah, so
yes.
Jeremy, I met you, I think Twitter, like many years ago, I think at this point.
Yes, that would
Probably
have been...
when you were still, you were at Wayne State at that point?
No, Wright State actually.
Wright State, sorry.
Which is hilarious because you mentioned like that. Joe Biden once, I think, stopped by our school and then called it Wayne State and everyone corrected him, saying Wright State, yeah.
Okay, all right. Sorry
So you're not the first time.
Okay, well, I'm in good company with
Yeah.
Papa Joe there.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
That's cool. So we've been hanging out here at Tour Camp. You're one of my last interviews of Tour Camp because it's now like 11:45.
Yeah.
The last night we got it just in under the wire. You spent all day. Well, tell us where you were today.
I was at Naval Air Station Whidbey Island, which
what is that?
It's a naval installation just off the coast here.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally the island that we get off of to get into the ferry.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think, Anacortes is the city.
Mm-hmm.
Just south of that, like around 20 minutes, is Oak Harbor and Whidbey Island.
Okay.
So literally an island just off the coast, and there's a nice naval base there that's been around for almost over 100 years now, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that's also happens to be where all the electronic warfare squadrons are based at.
Got it.
Yeah, in the Navy.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
specifically the Navy.
So, like, what does that mean? Like, they're like jamming planes and
Yes.
stuff like that?
So, it's specifically the EA-18G Growler is currently the platform that the Navy is using, and it's a modified F-18 with like 66 antennas.
Holy crap.
Yeah,
That's so cool.
And I actually, because through my consulting work, which I should probably mention.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Yeah. So at Cedar Creek, I do hardware reverse engineering, which I can't go too much detail into that, but fortunately, it doesn't conflict with my my side gig of Hong's Electronics, because one is more towards something else, and then the other, and Hong's Electronics is more toward radar and electronic warfare,
Oh,
kind of like
cool.
kind of isolated.
Yeah,
so there's
right.
less conflict of interest,
Right, that's good.
if any.
Yeah.
And and the reason why I got into all this is because it all started with my internship at Sierra Nevada Corporation.
Oh, what is that?
It's a defense contractor that's based out of Nevada, but they have offices all over the country. So that's where I interned as a sophomore.
Okay.
And there I worked on more like signals intelligence and electronic warfare, kind of like hardware.
Wow.
And that's where I did the 40-layer board with DDR4 RAM and a Zinc, and then ultra scale, all that interfacing and signal integrity work. To be honest, I learned more through that internship than in my entire undergrad, with the exception
that jives well with my my experience as well.
With the exception of like 3 classes, which I go to Wright. Yeah, so I went to Wright State, which is right next to Air Force Research Lab.
Right, in Dayton, Ohio.
In Dayton, Ohio, and also home to Hamvention, which we'll mention later.
Yep.
But so we have all these professors that come from AFRL and also from AFIT, the Air Force Institute of Technology, just across the street from Wright State, almost literally. And so some of them teach classes specifically kind of geared or tied toward radar and electronic warfare applications. There's a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it's a super narrow field, it sounds like, but like very, very technical and very important for defense needs.
And the cool thing is that most of, from what I've heard, VHDL was developed at Wright Pat, which was kind of cool.
Okay.
Yeah, like one of the professors that taught my FPGA course, I think if you look at some of those obscure early papers in like the 90s, his name is on a bunch of those.
Oh, wow.
So it's right. Really cool.
I did know VHDL versus Verilog's background about military based, and it's very strict language requirements and
very verbose.
Very verbose.
Very verbose. Yeah. So there I took interesting courses in radar and electronic warfare, and that as I said earlier, that all started with Sunoda. That got me interested in all this stuff. And the other thing that really kicked it off was when I first saw this processor board for a missile called the HARM, which stands for High Speed Anti-Radiation Missile. It's basically a missile that homes in on enemy or adversary radar, and it just knocks it out.
Wow.
Just explodes over the radar.
Whoa.
It's pretty cool stuff.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
there's got to be some crazy algorithms on there.
Yeah, which is funny because I think the earlier ones, they actually the term "in harm's way" kind of came from that, at least in the military context. Because
really?
In the early days, I forgot. No, it was Desert Storm where it happened. It was some electronic warfare planes with some of these HARM missiles and accidentally locked onto a B-52.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, because the B-52 on its tail gun has a radar system that kind of orients the gun toward like a plane that it wants to shoot at if there's any plane behind it. And it just so happened that there's some speculation whether or not it kind of matched the frequency or very similar to one that they were targeting on the ground, an Iraqi one.
Right.
But what ended up happening was the missile exploded right around the B-52, but fortunately didn't cause that much damage to where it could actually safely land somewhere. But that's where in harm's way comes from.
Really? That's crazy. I never knew that.
Yeah.
So how does this work then? So from a consulting standpoint, so you are generally interested in radar and generally interested in these systems.
Yes, I have an RF addiction.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. So what does that manifest as? I mean, does a military contractor call you up and be like, hey, we just need you to refer to us on this stuff?
Yeah. So through some of my various connections that I met over the past few years, which it's looking back, it's like, wow, I've actually networked quite a bit. A lot of them know I did this thing. So a lot of them have actually moved on now to different companies. So they're like, oh, Jeremy, you've done this before. Come over here, work with us for a little bit. And so that's kind of how I got into some of this stuff, and I get a nice RF fix for it.
Right, exactly.
Doing this kind of work. So
right. Well, like when you're doing radar stuff too. So like we've had Greg Charvat on the show a bunch before.
Yeah.
I think we've had someone else doing radar stuff. Can't remember who at the moment, but but like, what level are you usually talking about stuff? Is it usually at the RF level, or is it more like higher level software type stuff?
One example recently, I more or less just taught them how to do embedded systems, almost in a sense.
Yeah.
Like because I guess so.
Because they were like high level LabVIEW type stuff.
I won't name names, but they really needed a Linux guy to get their Zynq up and running.
Sure.
And so meanwhile, while this was happening, while I was working for them over a weekend, them trying to meet this deadline. They actually tried recruiting me in the process, of course. I mean, that's what everyone does.
Sure.
And it's interesting because they have their own anechoic chamber. It's pretty huge.
That's
so
nice.
I'm like,
that's a little tempting, huh?
Might have to ask you for a few favors.
Right.
Especially now that I have a 22 gigahertz spectrum
analyzer.
Yeah,
exactly.
So
yeah. Okay, so it's some mix between like consulting on the antenna stuff and the actual RF, being able to troubleshoot in the actual physical world, but then also like the systems that actually build that up.
Yeah, and there's a few fine lines here and there because there's stuff that like I'm not literally cleared for to work on.
Got it. Okay.
They can only do so much. So in terms of letting me work on stuff,
like how much they can tell you. And
yeah. So most of the time it's out of context, which I'm fine with. I'm cool.
Right. You want to just talk about radar in general or RF in general.
Oh, look at this cool RF thing. Or like this filter or whatever.
Right. That's cool.
Some bizarre things happening. Yeah.
Yeah. So today is field day. Obviously, the first thing I saw you doing as you were sitting here at Tour Camp was trying to make contacts. So what about your addiction spills over into the ham world?
Yeah. So fortunately I do ham radios. So I do on the side also. Yeah, as a hobby, do get a nice RF fix. But
RF fix.
It's just like with the people at Sierra Nevada used to joke that RF really isn't until like a gigahertz or above.
Right, yeah, of course.
Because it always depends on where you work at. And so at least to me that has kind of like more and more become like what I've been addicted to is really the black magic behind multi-gigahertz kind of designer.
Interesting.
Above.
Okay, so how does that impact your ham radio stuff then? Are you only doing certain bands or what?
So with ham radio, I recently started using more of my extra class privileges finally, now that I have an HF rig at home, and then I also have that QRP rig, the Yaesu 818, FT818.
So what is that, so people aren't in the extra class or even in the ham radio space, what does that actually mean?
So once you get an extra class, that means that, so in general you get quite a few of the HF bands, but with extra you get a little bit more space to wiggle around, basically. So
just higher frequencies, more room to play.
Yeah, more room to play, exactly.
Got it, okay.
So,
and what does that enable? Does that enable further contacts, or does it enable just lower power?
Right now propagation sucks because it's we're at the solar minimum right now.
Okay.
So it's even kind of like futile for me to even try QRP, but if you do get it working, it's like, wow, you did that.
Can you explain what that is for people who aren't? We've had a couple hams on the show. Just trying to get people where they are.
I have to remember from like the exam. So in enhanced solar cycles, or basically when you're at a solar maximum, when there's more ions hitting more of the solar particles hitting the atmosphere, the ionosphere gets charged up a little bit more, thus allowing more propagation because more reflections and such.
Sure.
Basically, that's, I think, how it comes.
I was actually asking what does QRP mean for people that aren't.
Oh, yeah, less than 5 watts.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, less than 5 watts.
Got it. Cool. And that's one of the rigs you have here is that low power.
Fairly difficult to do right now.
Right. You need to have a good antenna. You need to have good propagation, like you said.
It's literally dependent on what antenna you use, which that loop right now that you saw the other day, not cutting it right now.
Got it. That was like, it looked like basically 1 meter diameter loop of wire pretty much.
I think that does like 40 meters to 20 meters or something. But right now the bands are just horrible. So
like what would it take to get past the bad propagation?
Let's see, if I hung up a dipole,
like slung it through the trees, or had a quadcopter drag it somewhere.
Or go on top of a mountain, then
got it.
Yeah, that's probably the best.
And you ended up doing that, right?
Oh no, I didn't end up doing that today.
I thought you went.
I just ended up spending most of the day at the naval base. So
got it.
Just marveling at this beautiful electronic warfare aircraft.
Got it. Well, today is field day, right? So,
yes, today is field day.
So what does that usually mean for hams?
So it's kind of how would I put this? Not really an incentive, but it's just like a day designated for most hams to just test their equipment. Just basically an excuse to get together. And
right. Yeah. Instead of just catching people randomly, it's like it's more higher likelihood people.
And everyone knows what day it is, so they can typically plan ahead. So if you're not making contacts on this kind of day, then you're doing something wrong. It's really active. So
yeah, right, exactly, right. I was just actually over watching Fabs do some contacts over at the.
And it's the best day to test your equipment because you get finally tune everything.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, like my group, the Dayton Amateur Radio Association, will actually take their huge van out to the fire station nearby, and then they'll just start transmitting from there.
Really?
Yeah.
Why from there?
That's where it's actually parked at.
Oh, okay,
in a garage there.
Okay.
So,
okay. Yeah. So they'll just get out of the garage.
Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty cool.
Yes. As much as I think we try to drive it around, we don't try to put too much wear and tear on it.
That's work group or something else?
Oh no, this is Dayton Amateur Radio Association. DARA.
Okay.
Yeah.
DARA.
Yes. The folks who run Hamvention.
Got it. And so you had alluded to at Hamvention this year, you picked up a little prize.
Yes, the 22 gigahertz spectrum analyzer.
This blew my mind. You said you got this thing for what? How much?
$500.
That's killer.
And as far as I could tell, it works up to around 6 gig.
Yeah.
Because I have nothing that goes beyond that.
Right.
Like I just have my hacker up and then.
Yeah. Right. What else are you gonna take to a lab to test out the higher range, right?
Yeah. So fortunately, I did ask for a favor with one of my clients that if I could come in, I just haven't gotten to it yet. But I could probably just throw it in the anechoic chamber, measure the noise floor, just verify performance. So off the top of my head, I think it's the HP 8562A.
Mm-hmm. And you love it with all your heart and soul.
Yes.
Yeah, right?
Yes. It is now the jewel in my collection.
That's
finally.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
So like, okay, so you're obviously in this space. You're doing a lot of interesting radar stuff. You do ham radio stuff. In that case, for someone who's like, oh, well, Jeremy has a 22 gigahertz spectrum analyzer. Maybe I should have one. What is the thing where you say, yeah, you probably should think about getting a spectrum analyzer, especially like a higher bandwidth spectrum analyzer like that? Like, what are you using it for? I guess is the short
question. So it's just more or less just like with a scope, you're trying to see the unseen. Mm-hmm. You're just verifying that something's transmitting or it's not interfering with anything else. Like there's no spurious emissions.
Right. So will you just have this running in your lab and just have an antenna there to watch, just kind of like sanity check type thing?
Yeah, most likely. Yeah, most of the time it's just that. It's just like, is there an output?
Yep.
Did I turn on the did I turn on the on button? Is it power?
Is it power on? Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because just like with most other electronics with an oscilloscope, it's always a sanity check.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that's good.
It's just a way of
you don't need anything in the 6 to 22 megahertz range yet, gigahertz range.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Even if I wanted to try to run a radar for my house, I don't think the base would be too happy about it because I live like less than a mile from them.
Oh, you do? Yeah, so you're still in Dayton?
Yeah. Live with my parents, so it's great.
Cool. That's great, man.
Yeah.
More money for radios.
Yes. all the toys.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And so what's the scene like in Dayton? Obviously you have the Hamvention there.
Yes, we have the Hamvention. We have Proto Build Bar, which I don't know if you ever visited.
I don't think I did, yeah.
That's in downtown Dayton. It's a full service bar with 3D printers and soldering stations. So
cool.
If we wanted to do the SMD challenge drug, that'd be the perfect place to do it.
Sounds like Hamvention 2019.
Yeah, I just wish it never conflicted with Bay Area Maker Faire.
I know it is rough. I wish one of them would crack. I don't think either's going to do it though.
Yeah, I know that the Dara folks have been talking about it just because the issue with moving it is you end up
you got 50-year-old hams, or 50-year attendees, rather, that have...
You only, like, I think the last time they moved it, they stepped over some other Hamfests. Sure. And then the problem is they don't want it too close to field day either, but then they don't want the weather to be crappy, which it always is anyways. It always rains.
Right. Pushing it back a week wouldn't be the worst thing, but at the same time, probably,
because they at least...
politics there.
Yeah, there's lots of politics, lots of variables. Yeah.
So you're there most years, though?
Yes, I've been there every single year. The first year I went there was my senior year of high school just to see what it was all about. That was the first year I was licensed. Mm-hmm. And man, that was mind-blowing at first. Just like, wow, there's so many people here into this. And so much cool equipment out.
Yep.
And then after that, I just volunteered, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I'll roam the flea markets and find that the killer deal like the spectrum analyzer.
Yeah, man, that's a good take.
Literally, the guy who sold to me just told me, I had it just on my bench, and then I just hadn't turned it on for like 17 years. I realized that the other week, and then that's why I brought it here. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's like, how do you not use that?
That's the equivalent of like the little old lady that drives her car to church once a week and shopping once a week. And she sells you a car for like a couple grand,
Yeah.
That's great. So, you do security consulting as well, right? Radar consulting. And stuff like
security. I don't do any of the security consulting.
Oh, so security
that would
stuff
conflict directly with my full-time job, which I try to stay away from. So.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So is there stuff in this? I mean, so I know you can't talk about your job specifically, but like how much is there crossover between? I mean, obviously you just said there's none, but like So like, is there security baked into like any of these radar things, or? I mean, we're at a security conference. That's why I ask as much.
Yeah. So there are measures taken, at least with defense kind of equipment for anti-tamper and such.
Sure,
I think some of the crazier things that'll happen are. Some of those higher end like Xilinx FPGAs will actually have reverse engineering countermeasures. Like the die will break if you try to decapsulate and stuff. There's special like self-destruct mechanisms. It's just the problem with like anything when you implement something like that. When you try to service it, So like some systems, when you open the box, they'll have like this thin glass layer or whatever. Like there's like anti-tamper systems like that where you like if you don't carefully open it, like the way it's described in the manual, then the entire thing breaks.
Okay, so that's more just physical security type stuff as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now in terms of software security, I couldn't say much because I don't really deal with a lot of software.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm a hardware guy.
Yeah. Right. So tell us more about the stuff that you do in the hardware space. So are you doing like antenna design? You doing FPGA design? You doing like what level? What layer are you at?
So more or less, more like mixed signals. So kind of like FPGA plus the RF stuff.
Great. So like front ends pretty much.
Yeah,
like
front
handling
end,
all front end type things.
Yeah, just trying to get that data in.
Right. Well, the reason I asked is because you were saying like you like the Blackmagic stuff, but I was wondering that really. The more I get into it, the more I look at an antenna these days, especially high frequency ones. I'm like, what the hell are they doing here? Like, what is that shape? Why does that here? You know?
Yes. Why they do this?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
Something crazy like Maxwell's equations happening here. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it is happening there, but I don't really know what I'm looking at usually. So I'm just always curious about that kind of thing. So like, so you're doing like kind of the down conversion and the handling of bit streams and that kind of thing?
Yeah, more or less just around. Or try to stay within there.
Okay, all right, that's great. Yeah, is this are these at the levels of like boards so complicated you're not even allowed to lay them out yourself, that kind of thing?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, like huge. I mean, like I think anything in the RF space, usually they're using FPGAs that are $10,000 or similar kind of things.
So as I said earlier, with my internship, they like me being a sophomore at the time, they give this big task to me of just doing signal integrity work on this DDR4 and FPGA interface. And since DDR4 is running at RF frequencies, you have to worry about impedance matching, you have to worry about all sorts of RF things. So that
sounds like a real trial by fire, I gotta say.
It really was. Yeah, that taught me more than anything else in undergrad.
But also that could have knocked you, it could have gone both ways, right? It could have just as easily been like, screw it.
Yeah, I could just quit there.
Right.
Yeah, so like to be honest, the only time I ever thought about really changing my major, like really, was midway through the semester where I took Calc 2 and Physics 2 at the same time.
Yeah, that's the and isn't it amazing how like the math stuff scares people away, but the 40-layer board is like, whatever.
Yeah, oh man, yeah.
Right. It's like tangible versus intangible though.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like with my Calc 2 class, we had to memorize, I think, literally all these like different series and sequences, like the Taylor series and stuff, like divergence and convergence and all that, and just like, really, and I think if I recall, in that class, like 20 people, like in that one exam that I was talking about, like failed, got like below a 10%. So
that sounds familiar.
Yeah. Typical engineering.
I remember those days.
Yeah. Typical math.
So what are you excited about in the future? I mean, radar-wise, like how much do you see the technology changing? Ham-wise, how much do you see the technology changing? So like part of the reason why I try to still at least do some of the stuff freelance and with RF and electronic warfare is just so on the off chance if I do go back, I'm at least up to date on it. Yeah.
So if I do an interview anywhere else, then it's nice to have. So so I still get subscribed to a bunch of like different journals and tech papers on it. So it's funny because every time I'll like go on Facebook or Gmail, the advertisements are always like, "Hey, download this electronic warfare guide from Analog Devices."
Right.
It's like, okay, and I'll download it. Like, right. Oh, this is interesting.
Gets another one to read. Yep. Yeah. Right. You're getting targeted. And you don't mind it. Yeah.
And then there's the Association of Old Crows, which is the electronic warfare group.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And they publish the Journal of Electronic Defense, so that's a really nice publication that I like to read every now and then.
So what
gets me hyped up.
Yeah, so people that are interested in this kind of space, like, maybe people that are interested already know what it is. I'm still kind of clueless about what electronic warfare is.
Yes, so the original purpose was to just deny, degrade, deceive radar. Okay. Originally, like, you go back to World War II, the Cold War.
Jamming and
jamming, chaff, which are like the little like thin foil strips that reflect a lot of radar energy, and flares, of course, just like countermeasures to, just
detection.
Avoid detection, or if someone shoots a surface-to-air missile at you, you can just let it veer off somewhere with flares.
Yeah.
Or chaff or something. But more of that now because of asymmetric warfare and other things, like not like all the insurgents, they don't have an air force. Mm-hmm. They use remote control IEDs. So a lot of the electronic warfare stuff, at least recently, has shifted toward like counterinsurgency and all that kind of stuff. So like jamming radio control IEDs.
Right. It's not superpowers fighting against one another.
Yeah.
Right.
But meanwhile, at the same time, because Russia still exports most of the world's surface-to-air missile systems,
really?
still, right. still get a little. Still keeps me up at night. Yeah. Some of those things that they talk about. But a lot of this stuff now is like counter IEDs, and then just making sure that the
just
insurgency.
Just a focus shift, you're saying, pretty much.
Yeah, and jamming drones.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So literally, my senior design project was a drone jammer for prison, because like there's been documented cases of all this illegal like contraband coming into prisons like via drones. So at least that's what we wrote the proposal for. But like recently, some of the insurgency has actually started flying drones with bombs and try to fly them into like bases.
Jeez.
And then so like we have like RF rifles. So it literally looks like I think it like uses like the same stock as like an M16 rifle or whatever, and then just has like a big Yagi antenna sticking out, and then you just point at a drone and it just falls out the sky.
That's crazy. I mean, if you don't mind me asking, like that, how does the ethics stuff all come to play? But I mean, like,
oh man,
I know that could probably be an entire other show, but I've always just been like, I'm just gonna avoid it completely. But I know there's arguments in a lot of different directions,
and I know how vocal some people are. At least in like conferences like this, will look at about it. Like
I think
like even one of my friends, just like refuses to work in defense, even though he did radar, like RF and stuff.
I imagine if you're
doing
radar stuff, it'd be tough if you're like, well, no defense stuff. I'm not going to do it. It's like, that's where a lot of the
very
jobs
very
are.
hard. Yeah. So, I try not to think about it most of the time, but at least from where I stand, my allegiance is to the United States. That's where my allegiances lie, and as long as we send our troops to and then they all come back safely. Then
right, so kind of more on the defense side, that kind of thinking about the defense stuff versus otherwise.
Like I'm let's say I want to build this RF jamming backpack so that the soldiers don't get blown up by IEDs or something.
Sure.
So
right.
Yeah, or
right. You don't have to. You're saying you don't necessarily focus on the mission so much as just the protection of people that you.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's how at least like to think of it.
Yeah.
And so it used to be before those jamming backpacks, as I said, came out.
Oh, so that's a real thing.
Yeah, that's a real thing.
Wow, okay.
That's a real thing. They either carry backpacks or they actually mount them on vehicles. Very similar systems.
They just flood the frequencies so that.
You can find videos where like they'll like capture the video camera of like an insurgent that supposedly tried to initiate one of these IEDs remotely, and like
it's like a training video or like a promotional video type thing.
Oh no, like this is like a real video where they captured it from an insurgent. And
right,
like,
I mean the video was meant for promotional.
Oh yeah, it was eventually meant for promotional. Yeah. But like the insurgent's trying to initiate this IED, and then it doesn't work because as this convoy is passing by, they're using an active jamming system and to safely pass through, and they're like, "What's going on?" Yeah,
that's weird.
But before that, they actually literally used to fly planes like the EA-18G Growler.
The one you're talking about,
my current favorite jamming platform. They would like literally just start just in the sky, just like circling around. Making sure, flooding the spectrum.
66. You said 66 antennas?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, try to receive and then try to jam. Yeah.
Well, this is obviously we've kind of gone a lot of different places here, but this is I think it's been an interesting hearing, like, coming from the Dayton area, it sounds like the defense type stuff is very interesting. There's a lot of radar stuff there, but mostly at the end of the day, like you said, you're just trying to get your RF jollies. And you're looking for interesting problems in the RF space. Yeah,
because most of the cutting edge stuff is in defense.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, most of the stuff we take for granted today, was even Bunny mentioned it, is from the Cold War.
Who gave the keynote talk? We're so many talks in. I feel like we should call back to that.
I was very surprised. Bunny actually pointed that out. Literally, leading up to the '90s, because we had that whole fear of the Soviets, trying to nuke us. We developed transistors quite quickly. We developed integrated circuits quite quickly, and eventually that trickled down to the consumer quite well at a very reasonable rate. It's just the mind-blowing cutting edge tech that exists. It's just things that that's
the space you want to play in.
Exactly.
That's great. Well, Pete, where can people find more info about you online?
So there's my website, which is still even now I think it's dated, but because I originally started out as a Google blog.
No boy. Okay.
So
maybe Twitter is a good starting place.
Yeah, Twitter. So Electronics by JH. That's all one word.
Okay. That's great.
Yeah, cool. It is. And then my website, www.jhangelectronics.org. Okay. All one word.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Jeremy, thanks for hanging out this week. I really enjoyed it, and thanks for being on the show.